Hey, my friends, all you love seekers and peacemakers. It's Brudda Zen, yo, Brudda from a different Mutta, bringing you another Take 10 with Zen. So, today's Take 10 with Zen is kind of inspired during one of my morning walks a couple days ago. I was walking by someone's yard and they had a sign of freedom that just really jumped out at me and that stuck in my mind. And of course, as we're approaching the 4th of July weekend here in the United States, that freedom idea is, of course, in the forefront of my mind. And what was brought to my attention was this picture of this dog in one of the little dog kennels, and it was trying so hard to just break through and bite at and get through that little metal door that it had. And then I saw that it did, and it broke through, and it ran up the stairs and jetted through the little doggy door, and saw that there was no fence in the backyard at all, and it just took off sprinting across the yard. And as it got toward the edge of the yard, the little electric invisible fence collar that it had on started to shock its neck. And then suddenly it remembered some of the great pain it had when it had tried to push those limits of the invisible fence in the past. So feeling that pain, it slowed down and stopped and decided it didn't want to feel that, so it turned around and went back. So though it thought it was free, it wasn't. Then another picture came to my mind of a man who was in prison, but he was, even though he was in his jail cell, he had kind of faced his demons and worked through those things in his life, and he was actually smiling, and he was appreciative of the life experience he had. And I was like, wow. So even though he was in a prison cell, he was free on the inside. And then my view scanned over to a prison guard who was so stressed out, trying to do the job that he could, making sure he was doing all the right things in life, looking the right way, owning the right things, being in the right place, being with the right person, just the stress of all these right things. And even though he was free on the outside, on the inside, he wasn't. So, he had himself imprisoned with all the should-bes of life. So who was more free in that situation? So that is, what stood out to me. And it seems a lot of our energy is invested in trying to keep our outer self in what we think is freedom, and less energy is invested in freeing our inner selves. And though people on the outside of me might be able to cage my outer body, no one can cage my inner self except for me. And like that dog from earlier I was talking about, if it had just put up with a little bit of pain as it went through that, the kind of boundary of the electrical invisible fence, if it just put up with a little bit of pain as it went through, that fear, through that boundary, then it would have been scot-free. It would have been home free, because after it's past that boundary, it turns off again. And then he would be out there in the world without any of those boundaries, without any of that pain any longer. So, freedom! He had freedom, or he could have had freedom. But, what is freedom? Maybe freedom is the difference between, living in the fear of losing, conditional love, or having and living in unconditional love. Maybe it's the difference between defining myself by that outer conditional world that is all about judgment and comparing, versus the, internal world of unconditional love, where there's a love that I can't lose because it's unconditional. There's no conditions. Unconditional. And my emotional world, all my emotions happen in here. They don't happen out, there. They all happen in here. So, when I look out at the world, I don't see the world as it really is. I really see the world as I am. So if I take the time to look inside of myself and free myself on the inside, then I become free on the outside. So as we kind of move into the 4th of July weekend, I invite you to take some deep breaths, take a step back, and just kind of look at your world. Look at your outer world, but then look at your inner world, and just kind of see, what am I fearing? What are those fears that are shaking and rattling my world, that are kind of shackling myself with? Because when we get to the root of those fears, that is what helps us become more free. So in these times, I just wish you all the best, and I wish you peace and love, and please know that you are always unconditionally loved by the Creator of all things. And I love you too. You take care.